Deep in the mountains of Northern California, two federal employees went to work on an ordinary Thursday morning. By the time the sun rose the next day, they had survived nearly 15 hours as hostages, zip-tied at gunpoint inside a remote trailer. How did a routine day in California's Shasta-Trinity National Forest turn into a terrifying hostage crisis involving federal employees? Before we get into how this standoff unfolded and how the FBI's hostage rescue team brought it to an end, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover verified true crime and breaking investigations every week, and you won't want to miss how this story develops. To understand this case, you need to understand where it happened. The Shasta-Trinity National Forest is the largest national forest in California, stretching across more than 2 million acres in the state's rugged north. It's a landscape of dense timber, alpine lakes, and mountain peaks, anchored by the towering presence of Mount Shasta itself. The forest spans Siskiyou, Shasta, Trinity, and several neighboring counties. A patchwork of wilderness so vast that entire sections are accessible only by narrow, unpaved roads. This particular incident centered on Gumboot Lake, a small alpine lake near Mount Shasta, reached by a one-lane road climbing roughly 2,000 feet into rough terrain. It's the kind of place that draws hikers, anglers, and Forest Service crews, and the kind of place where, if something goes wrong, help can be hours away. That remoteness is not just scenery, it's a critical part of this story. The two people at the center of this crisis were U.S. Forest Service employees, both described by officials as biologists conducting seasonal fieldwork in the forest. Their identities have not been released to the public, and out of respect for their privacy, we won't speculate about who they are. According to Siskiyou County Sheriff Jeremiah LaRue, the two employees were carrying out routine duties on Thursday, July 16th, when they encountered two armed individuals. What began as a normal workday in the wilderness turned, within moments, into a kidnapping. Let's walk through what officials say actually happened, based on statements from the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of California. At approximately 10:55 a.m. on Thursday, a U.S. Forest Service law enforcement officer alerted the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office that two Forest Service employees had been zip-tied and were being held at gunpoint inside a trailer near Gumboot Lake. Deputies and the Sheriff's Special Response Team arrived at the remote location around noon. Given the terrain, drones were deployed to help locate the exact trailer and monitor the scene from above. At 12:20 p.m., the FBI's Sacramento field office was notified, and agents began responding from Redding. Investigators say one of the suspects used a hostage's phone to call authorities, stating that he had taken two Forest Service employees hostage and that he had, in his words, live ammunition ready for anyone who interfered. By around 4:20 p.m., negotiators had made direct contact with the suspect inside the trailer, identified by authorities as 49-year-old Joseph Charles Henriksen. According to the sheriff, Henriksen said he had firearms and ammunition and stated that he wanted to speak with the FBI. The negotiations stretched through the evening and into the overnight hours. What followed was one of the largest coordinated law enforcement responses this remote stretch of California has seen in recent memory. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office led the initial response, joined by the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, the Bureau of Land Management, California Highway Patrol, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The FBI's Sacramento field office deployed agents directly to the scene and, given the seriousness of an armed hostage situation involving federal employees, the FBI's elite hostage rescue team was flown in from Quantico, Virginia. At the federal level, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins said she remained in direct contact with FBI Director Kash Patel and the White House throughout the crisis, describing the goal simply: get the hostages home safely. This is a case study in what a wilderness hostage situation actually demands. Not one agency, but nearly a dozen, coordinating across jurisdictions, terrain, and time zones, all converging on a single dirt road above a mountain lake. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, tap the like button now. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who care about true crime reporting done responsibly. And let us know in the comments, have you ever visited a remote area like Gumboot Lake? Now let's get into how this standoff finally ended. For hours, negotiators worked to talk Henriksen into releasing the two employees peacefully. Officials have not disclosed the full content of those negotiations, but they've confirmed the process was slow and deliberate. The priority, at every stage, was avoiding gunfire in a situation where two lives hung in the balance. That patience paid off. The first hostage was released at approximately 1:50 a.m. Friday. The second was freed about 15 minutes later. Roughly 40 minutes after that, at around 2:30 a.m., both suspects, Joseph Henriksen and his adult son, 23-year-old Phoenix Henriksen, surrendered and were taken into custody without further incident. Authorities say Henriksen had an AR-15 rifle, ammunition, and knives inside the trailer, and had claimed to possess grenades, though officials have not confirmed that claim independently. The two Forest Service employees do not appear to have suffered serious physical injuries, according to authorities, and both are now recovering at home with their families. At a press conference Friday afternoon at the Shasta Lake Ranger Station, U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Schultz called it a frightening experience, not just for the two employees, but for their families, co-workers, and everyone who cares about the people who serve this agency. FBI Special Agent Brian Tosh said both employees were resting and would need time to process what happened. As of this reporting, investigators still do not know why Henriksen specifically wanted to speak with the FBI, and a motive has not been established. Sheriff LaRue noted that neither suspect was previously known to law enforcement. Joseph Charles Henriksen and Phoenix Henriksen are both facing federal charges of kidnapping a federal employee, according to U.S. Attorney Eric Grant of the Eastern District of California. In plain terms, because the victims were on-duty federal employees at the time of the alleged kidnapping, this isn't a state-level case. It's prosecuted in federal court under federal kidnapping statutes. If convicted, both men face a maximum possible penalty of life in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. It's important to underline something here. These are charges, not convictions. Under the American legal system, both Joseph and Phoenix Henriksen are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. As of this recording, it was unclear whether either man had retained an attorney. Cases like this highlight a challenge that's easy to overlook. Law enforcement in remote wilderness doesn't operate like law enforcement in a city. There's no quick perimeter to set up when the scene is a one-lane mountain road 2,000 feet up rugged terrain. Radio communication can be unreliable. Response times that would be minutes in a city stretch into hours. Drones become essential tools simply to locate a target because dense forest canopy can hide a structure just a few hundred feet away, and negotiators lose one of their biggest advantages, time pressure that works in their favor. In an isolated standoff, a suspect may feel they have nothing to lose and know where anyone can reach them quickly. That's precisely why an operation like this required not just local deputies, but state agencies, the FBI's Sacramento field office, and ultimately, a specialized federal hostage rescue team built for exactly this kind of high-stakes, low-visibility environment. This incident lands at a moment when public attention is already on the safety of federal workers who do their jobs in remote, often unsupervised environments. Biologists, surveyors, rangers, and field crews who spend entire days alone in the backcountry with no co-workers nearby, and, often, spotty cell service. For the Forest Service, an agency whose employees are typically unarmed field scientists rather than law enforcement, this crisis is a stark reminder of the risks embedded in routine fieldwork. For visitors to national forests, it raises uncomfortable questions about who else might be occupying these remote, technically unsupervised corners of public land. Questions authorities have not yet answered here, since neither suspect was previously known to law enforcement. Chief Schultz's message after the release focused on gratitude and relief, but agencies managing millions of acres of wilderness, often with limited law enforcement staffing, will likely be examining what this case means for how field employees are deployed, tracked, and protected going forward. As of this recording, both Joseph and Phoenix Henriksen remain in federal custody, facing kidnapping charges that carry the possibility of life in prison. The motive behind the alleged kidnapping is still under investigation, and no further charges or court dates had been publicly confirmed at the time this script was written. We want to be clear, This is a developing case. Some facts may change as the investigation continues, and as we said earlier, both suspects are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We'll be tracking this story and will update you if there are significant developments in the charges, the motive, or the case itself. If you want to stay updated as this case moves through the courts, subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll bring you the next update the moment there's real news to report. And if you're curious how federal kidnapping cases like this one typically play out in court, check out the video linked on screen now, where we break down exactly what comes next for suspects facing charges like these. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.